They say a voice can break glass, shatter stone, even move mountains. But no one told me mine could shatter a kingdom. Tonight, standing before the Alpha Court with trembling hands and a heart full of dread, I'm about to discover that some songs should never be sung. The Grand Celestium is breathtaking in its cruelty. Vaulted ceilings soar 3 stories high, painted with scenes of ancient Alpha victories over lesser beings like me. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors, so polished, I can see my own terrified reflection staring back. The air tastes of expensive wine, roasted venison, and the particular brand of arrogance that comes from never having been told no. I stand on the performance dais, a small raised platform in the center of the hall, surrounded by a sea of predatory eyes. Alphas in their ceremonial finery, deep crimsons, royal purples, midnight blacks, lounge at tables arranged in concentric circles around me. They don't sit, they sprawl. They own space the way I never could. My servant's uniform, a plain gray dress with the court's silver insignia stitched over my heart, marks me as what I am. Property. My bare feet are cold against the stone. They don't give servants shoes for performances. Something about authenticity and natural omega appeal. Really, it's just another way to remind us we're beneath them. I am Marin Ashvale. I am 23 years old. I have been a court servant for 6 years, ever since the fever took my mother and left me orphaned with nowhere else to go. The court took me in, but took in is a generous phrase for what they did. They acquired me, added me to their collection of omegas who clean their floors, serve their food, and occasionally, like tonight, provide their entertainment. I've spent 6 years making myself invisible. Small, quiet. I speak only when spoken to. I keep my eyes down. I've perfected the art of moving through rooms like smoke, there and gone before anyone really registers my presence. It's the only way to survive here. The court doesn't love omegas. They tolerate us, use us, and discard us when we're no longer useful. My mother's voice whispers in my memory, her final gift before the fever claimed her. Your voice is your power, little bird. But power in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Choose carefully who you sing for. I haven't sung since the day she died. Not truly. Not with my whole heart. I hum sometimes while I work, quiet enough that no one hears, but singing, real singing, the kind that used to make my mother weep with joy, that I've locked away in a cage of grief and fear deep in my chest. Until tonight. Tonight, the High Steward, Lord Corvith Blackmere, decided the court needed entertainment. His cold gray eyes had found me in the servants' corridor this morning, and I'd felt my blood turn to ice. You. The Ashvale girl. You sing, don't you? It wasn't really a question. Servants don't get questions, we get commands. I used to, my lord. But Tonight, the Alpha Court convenes for the autumn gathering. You will perform. That was it. No discussion. No consideration that I might not want to bare my soul in front of 100 alphas who see me as less than human. No acknowledgement that singing for me is sacred, personal, the last thread connecting me to my mother. Just orders. And now here I stand, my throat tight with unshed tears, my hands clasped in front of me, to hide their shaking. The court musician, an elderly beta named Osric, sits at the grand piano to my left. He's kind enough, gave me an encouraging nod when I took my place. It doesn't help. The conversations around me slowly die down. The clinking of glasses fades. The attention of 100 powerful predators turns to me like a physical weight pressing down on my shoulders. Lord Blackmere rises from his seat at the head table. He's tall, silver-haired, with the kind of face that might have been handsome once but has been hardened by decades of wielding power over those weaker than himself. Honored alphas, his voice booms across the hall. Tonight we have a rare treat. This Omega servant has been blessed with a voice said to rival the ancient song weavers of legend. She will perform for us the Ballad of the First Moon, a traditional piece that celebrates the founding of our great court. My stomach twists. The Ballad of the First Moon. Of course he'd choose that one. It's the longest, most technically challenging piece in the traditional repertoire. 4 verses, each building in complexity and emotional intensity. It's designed to showcase a singer's full range, their control, their ability to convey deep emotion. It's also the song my mother sang to me every night before bed. I close my eyes briefly, fighting back the wave of grief and rage. They're taking this from me. Taking this last sacred thing and making it a performance, a spectacle for their amusement. Begin, Lord Blackmere commands, settling back into his seat like a king on a throne. Osric's fingers touch the piano keys. The opening notes float up, delicate and haunting. It's my cue. I open my mouth, and for a terrible moment, nothing comes out. My voice has abandoned me, fled in the face of this violation. The silence stretches. I can feel the court's impatience building, hear the rustle of fabric as they shift in their seats. Then I think of my mother, her warm hands cupping my face, her smile that made me feel like I was the most important person in the world, her voice telling me that my power was my own, that no one could take it unless I gave it away. I haven't given it away. They're trying to steal it. But maybe, just maybe, I can keep a piece of it for myself. Maybe I can sing the notes they want to hear while holding back the true song, the one that lives in my heart. I take a breath, and I begin. My voice starts soft, tentative. The first verse of the ballad is meant to be gentle, telling of the forceful time before the court was formed, when alphas and omegas lived in separate tribes, divided by fear and misunderstanding. I sing the notes correctly, hit each pitch with technical precision, but I keep my heart out of it. I sing the way I clean floors mechanically, efficiently, without investment. Some of the alphas look satisfied. Others look bored. Good. Let them be bored. Let this be forgettable. But as the second verse approaches, something shifts. The piano's melody grows more complex, and the words turn to the legend of the first bond, the mythical connection between an ancient alpha and omega that supposedly founded the court itself. According to legend, their bond was so powerful it could be felt by everyone around them, a tangible force that brought their warring tribes together. I've always thought it was just a story, a pretty lie to justify the court's power structure, to make omegas believe there was once a time when we were valued, cherished even. As I sing these words, my mind drifts to the day my mother died. I was 17, still clinging to the naive belief that the world was essentially good, that bad things happened but people helped each other through them. The fever had swept through the lower quarters of the city like wildfire. We lived in the outer rings then, the crumbling neighborhoods where omegas, low-rank betas, and other undesirables were relegated. The court's healers didn't come to the outer rings. Why would they? We didn't matter. My mother fought it for 3 days. 3 days of burning skin and delirious mumbling. I held her hand, pressed cool cloths to her forehead, begged her to stay with me. On the third night, during a brief moment of clarity, she'd gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Marin, my little bird, listen to me." Her voice was a rasp, barely audible. "Your voice is a gift from the old ways. Before the court, before the hierarchies, there were songweavers. They could sing bonds into being, could heal with melody, could even break curses with the right song. I'd thought it was the fever, talking, delusions. I never told you because I wanted you to be safe, but you have that gift. I've heard it when you sing. It's why your voice makes people feel things they don't understand. Promise me you'll be careful. The court fears what it cannot control." And a songweaver. She'd coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "They would use you or destroy you, maybe both." "I promise, Mama. I promise. But you're going to be fine. You just need to rest." She'd smiled, sad and knowing. "I love you, little bird. Never let them cage your song." Those were her last words. She died an hour later, and I sang to her as she went. I sang every song she'd ever taught me. Sang until my voice was raw and broken. Sang until the neighbors came and found me curled around her body, still humming through my tears. The court took me in 3 days after her funeral. Took me in meant I was processed, assigned a servant number, given a uniform and a tiny room in the servant quarters, and put to work. They didn't ask if I wanted to be there. Orphaned omegas didn't get choices. For the first year, I was numb. I scrubbed floors, served meals, washed dishes, and felt nothing. I was a ghost moving through the court's glittering halls, invisible and empty. Then I started to notice things. The way alphas spoke about omegas when they thought we couldn't hear. The casual cruelty. The assumptions that we were less intelligent, less capable, less human. I watched other servants, good people, kind people, be discarded when they got too old or too sick to work efficiently. I learned that the court's beautiful facade, all its talk of tradition and honor, and the sacred bonds between ranks, was a lie. We were furniture to them, useful objects, and I learned to make myself even smaller, even quieter. Because furniture that doesn't draw attention doesn't get broken. I haven't really sung, with my whole heart since my mother's death. I've buried that part of myself along with her memory, because if she was right, if I really do have some kind of gift, then using it here, in this place, would be the ultimate betrayal of her final wish. The court would turn it into another tool, another way to use me. So I've kept my true voice locked away for 6 years. And until this morning, I thought I'd succeeded in becoming exactly what they wanted: invisible, compliant, forgettable. But Lord Blackmere noticed me. Somehow, despite all my efforts, he noticed me. The second verse ends, and I'm halfway through the performance. My voice is steady but emotionless, a pretty sound devoid of soul. Several alphas have returned to their conversations, barely paying attention now. Perfect. Just 2 more verses. Then I can leave this dais, return to the servant quarters, and disappear again. But as the third verse begins, something changes. The third verse is where the ballad transforms from a history to prophecy. The lyrics speak of the second bond, a mythical event when another pair, an alpha and omega, will create a connection so powerful it will reshape the court itself. Most people interpret it as flowery metaphor, a poetic way of saying the court will endure forever. But as I sing these words, my eyes drift across the sea of faces, and I see him. He sits at a small table near the back, partially hidden in the shadows between 2 massive stone pillars. While every other alpha in the room wears elaborate finery, he's dressed simply in black, no decorations or insignias. His presence is different from the others, quieter, more contained, but somehow more intense. Like a storm holding its breath. Our eyes meet, and the world stops. His eyes are amber, not brown, not gold, but true amber, the color of ancient tree sap with sunlight caught inside. They're luminous in the dim light, and they're fixed on me with an intensity that steals my breath. I stumble over the next word, my perfect technical performance faltering for the first time. Something passes between us in that moment of eye contact. It's not attraction, not exactly, though there's an element of that. It's recognition. Like seeing a face you've been searching for your entire life without knowing you were searching. My voice wavers, and suddenly I'm not singing mechanically anymore. Something in my chest cracks open, just a hairline fracture in the walls I've built. The next phrase comes out different, richer, deeper, infused with an emotion I can't name. The alpha's expression shifts. His eyes widen almost imperceptibly. He leans forward in his seat, every line of his body suddenly alert. And the strangest thing happens. The air in the Grand Celestium changes. It's subtle, barely noticeable, like the pressure shift before a storm, but I feel it. The hair on my arms stands up. My skin tingles. Several alphas look around, confused. The conversations that had resumed now stop, again. Even Lord Blackmere sits up straighter, his eyes narrowing. I tear my gaze away from the amber-eyed alpha, my heart hammering. What was that? What just happened? Focus, Marin. Just finish the song and get out of here. But my voice won't cooperate anymore. That crack in my walls is widening, and the true song, the one I've kept locked away, is pushing through. The fourth and final verse begins, and despite my desperate attempts to maintain control, my voice opens up. It's like the difference between a candle and a bonfire. Where before I was giving them technically correct notes, now I'm giving them emotion, depth, power. The words of the prophecy pour out of me. And I can hear my mother in my voice. Can feel her presence like she's standing beside me. When moon meets sun in ancient dance, when servant song breaks alpha's trance, the second bond shall wake and rise, and shatter all the careful lies. 2 souls as one, though worlds apart, will heal the rift, and mend the whirling's heart. The song weaver returns at last, to free the future from the past. The final note rises from my throat, and it's not just a sound, it's a force. It rings through the Grand Celestium like a bell, pure and clear and impossibly powerful. The crystal chandeliers overhead vibrate in resonance, Several wine glasses crack. The air itself seems to shimmer, and the amber-eyed alpha stands up so abruptly his chair falls backward with a crash. Every eye in the room turns to him. I see his face fully now, sharp features, dark hair, a jaw tight with shock, and something that looks like wonder. His hands are gripping the edge of his table so hard his knuckles are white. Impossible, he breathes, and even from across the room, I hear the word. The court erupts into chaos. Alphas are on their feet, talking over each other, demanding to know what just happened. Lord Blackmere is shouting for order, his face red with anger or fear, I can't tell which. And I stand frozen on the dais, my voice still echoing in my ears, realizing with dawning horror that I've just done exactly what my mother warned me never to do. I've shown them what I am. The amber-eyed alpha starts moving toward me, pushing through the crowd with single-minded purpose. His eyes never leave mine, and in them I see something that terrifies me more than Lord Blackmere's anger or the court's confusion. I see recognition, understanding. He knows what I am. Songweaver, the thing from legends that isn't supposed to exist anymore, and he's coming for me. Panic floods my system, drowning out every other thought. I do the only thing my instincts scream at me to do. I run. I bolt from the dais, my bare feet slapping against marble. The crowd is too dense, too chaotic. Bodies everywhere. Alphas arguing and gesturing. Betas trying to restore order. I'm small and I'm fast, and I know every servant's passage in this building. Wait, the amber-eyed alpha's voice cuts through the noise. Please wait. Don't wait. I can't. My mother's warnings echo in my head. They would use you or destroy you. Maybe both. I duck through a service entrance hidden behind a tapestry, slam the door behind me, and plunge into the dimly lit corridor that runs along the back of the Grand Celestium. My heart pounds so hard I can feel it in my throat. What have I done? What have I done? The servant passages are a maze, designed to let us move through the court without being seen. I know them all. I've spent 6 years memorizing every twist and turn, every shortcut and hiding place. I run on instinct, taking corners without thinking, descending narrow staircases. Behind me, I hear the service door bang open. Please. His voice again, closer than it should be. I'm not going to hurt you. I just need to talk to you. Like, I'm going to believe that. Alphas don't just talk to Omegas who've revealed themselves to be something dangerous, something powerful. They capture, they control, they use. I reach the ground level and burst out into the court's garden. It's dark out here, the autumn night cold and crisp. The garden is massive, acres of carefully manicured hedges, flower beds, and fountains. In the center stands the old temple, a relic from before the court was formed, now mostly forgotten and unused. I need to get to the servant quarters, get my few belongings, and disappear. Leave the court, leave the city if I have to. Start over somewhere else where no one knows what I am. But as I run down the gravel path, my foot catches on a loose stone. I stumble, crying out as I twist my ankle badly. Pain shoots up my leg and I go down hard, scraping my palms on the gravel. No, 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 no. Get up, Marin, get up. I try to stand but my ankle won't bear weight. Behind me, running footsteps grow louder. I look back desperately and see him, the amber-eyed alpha, emerge from the court building. He's not running anymore. He's spotted me, and he's approaching slowly, carefully, hands held out, like he's trying not to spook a frightened animal, which, I suppose, is exactly what I am. Please, he says again, his voice gentler now. I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Aldrich Sylvanus. I don't care who you are, I managed to say, my voice shaking. Leave me alone. I can't do that. He keeps approaching, each step measured. Do you have any idea what just happened in there, what you did? I sang. That's what they wanted, I sang. No. He shakes his head, and there's wonder in his voice. You didn't just sing. You awakened something. I felt it. Everyone in that room felt it, even if they don't understand what it was. He's 10 feet away now. I try to scoot backward, but my injured ankle makes me cry out again. He stops immediately, his expression shifting to concern. You're hurt. Don't come any closer. I'm a healer, he says quietly. Among other things, Let me look at your ankle. A healer. The word triggers something in my memory. The court has many alpha healers, but they work in the medical wing, treating high-ranking members of the court. They certainly don't attend the autumn gathering dressed in plain clothes, sitting in the shadows. You're lying, I say, but even I can hear the uncertainty in my voice. I'm not. He slowly lowers himself into a crouch, making himself less threatening. I'm going to reach into my coat pocket now. Just to show you something. I'm not pulling out a weapon, okay? I don't respond, but I watch as he carefully extracts a small leather wallet. He opens it and holds it out where I can see. Inside is an official-looking badge with the court seal and a title inscribed below. Royal Physician to the High Court. My mind races. The Royal Physician is one of the highest positions in the court, answering only to the court council itself. And he's young, maybe early 30s. How did he achieve that position so young? Unless... You're very skilled, I say slowly, for someone so young. A brief smile crosses his face. I had a good teacher. My mother was a healer in the outer rings. She taught me that skill matters more than rank. The outer rings, where my mother and I lived, where the court's privileged members never go. Why were you at the gathering? I ask. Dressed like that, sitting in the back? His expression turns careful. Because I was told an Omega servant with an unusual voice would be performing tonight, and I was curious. Who told you? Someone who knew what to listen for. He inches slightly closer. Your ankle is swelling. If you don't let me help, you could do permanent damage. Please. I want to refuse. Every instinct says not to trust him. But my ankle is throbbing, and I can see even in the dim light that it's already swelling badly. And there's something in his eyes, in his voice, that doesn't feel like the other alphas. He doesn't look at me like I'm furniture or a curiosity. He looks at me like I'm a person. Fine, I say finally, but if you try anything, I won't. He moves forward slowly until he's kneeling beside me. This is going to hurt a bit. I'm sorry. His hands are gentle as he carefully examines my ankle. His touch is warm, clinical, professional. He probes the swelling, checking the range of motion. I hiss in pain. Not broken, he says, but it's a bad sprain. You need to stay off it for at least a week. Keep it elevated. Ice it regularly. I can't stay off it. I have work. He looks up at me, those amber eyes unreadable in the darkness. After what happened tonight, Marin, you can't go back. The use of my name startles me. How do you know my name? Lord Blackmere announced it when he introduced you. Right. Of course. I have to go back, I say, trying to sound firm. My things are there. My mother's... I stop myself. He doesn't need to know about my mother's belongings. The small box of her things, that's all I have left of her. Then let me help you. He starts to reach for me, probably to help me stand, but freezes when I flinch back. He pulls his hands back immediately. I'm sorry, I should have asked first. May I help you up? It's such a small thing, asking permission. But no alpha has ever asked me for permission for anything before. Slowly, I nod. He carefully helps me to my feet, taking most of my weight. I expect him to be rough, impatient. But his movements are slow and careful, constantly checking to make sure he's not hurting me more. There's an old shrine just through those trees, he says, nodding toward a small grove to our left. No one uses it anymore. You can rest there while I figure out what to do. I don't need you to figure anything out, I protest, but even as I say it, I know it's not true. My ankle is useless. I'm stranded in the court gardens, with no way to get back to my quarters without being seen. And after what happened in the Grand Celestium, I have no idea what's waiting for me if I do go back. Humor me, Aldrich says, gently. Just for tonight. By morning, everything will look different. I doubt that. But I'm out of options. So I let him help me limp toward the shrine, each step sending jolts of pain up my leg. Neither of us speaks, but I'm intensely aware of him, his warmth, his steady presence, the way his breathing adjusts to match my halting pace. And I'm aware of something else too, something I felt in that moment when our eyes met across the Grand Celestium. A pull. like an invisible thread connecting us. My mother's words echo again. When servant's song breaks Alpha's trance, the second bond shall wake and rise. No. That's just a legend. Just a pretty story from the ballad. But as we reach the shrine, and Aldrich carefully helps me sit on the stone bench inside, as I feel that pull strengthen rather than fade, I'm terribly afraid the legend might be more real than I ever imagined. And I have no idea what that means for either of us. The shrine is small, barely more than a covered stone pavilion with open sides and a bench running along the interior wall. It smells of old incense and decay, not unpleasant, just forgotten. Moonlight filters through the vine-covered lattice roof, creating patterns of shadow and silver on the floor. Aldrich helps me settle onto the bench, then steps back, giving me space. He doesn't sit. Instead, he runs a hand through his dark hair, a gesture that seems more human than alpha. More uncertain than confident. I need to tell you something, he says finally, and I need you to try to stay calm. My heart, which had finally started to slow down, kicks back into overdrive. That's never a good way to start a conversation. A brief, humorless smile crosses his face. No, I suppose not. He takes a breath. What happened in the Grand Celestium tonight, the resonance you created, the way the air changed it, wasn't imagination. It was real. You awakened something dormant, something ancient. The second bond, I whisper, the words, tasting like ashes in my mouth. But that's just a legend. Most legends have roots in truth. He moves to the shrine's entrance, looking out into the darkness as if checking we're alone. The first bond, the one that founded the court, was real. The histories have been edited over the centuries to make it seem like a political alliance, a strategic partnership. But it was more than that. It was two people whose souls recognized each other so completely that they became something greater than the sum of their parts. Song weavers, I say quietly, repeating what my mother told me. He turns back to me, surprise flickering across his face. You know about the song weavers? My mother told me stories, before she died. His expression softens. I'm sorry for your loss. The automatic sympathy catches me off guard. I've heard, I'm sorry for your loss. Hundreds of times, always delivered with the same rehearsed sympathy, the words that mean nothing. But when Aldrich says it, I hear genuine compassion. I see it in his eyes. Thank you, I manage. The song? Weavers were omegas with a gift, he continues. They could sing bonds into being, could sense the connections between people, could heal or harm with their voices. The court's founders, the first bond, included a song weaver. She was the omega half of the pair. What happened to them? To the song weavers? His jaw tightens. They became too powerful. Too influential. The court structure depends on hierarchy, on keeping omegas in subordinate positions. Song weavers threatened that structure because they proved omegas could have power that rivaled or even exceeded alphas. So the court systematically eliminated them. Not violently, that would have created martyrs, but through breeding restrictions, through taking song weaver children from their families, through ensuring the gift was diluted or lost over generations. Horror crawls up my spine. They committed genocide. They called it maintaining social stability. His voice is bitter. The official histories don't even mention the song weavers. They've been erased. But my mother had the gift. And I trail off, not wanting to voice it out loud. You have it too, Aldrich finishes gently. Strongly. I've never felt anything like what happened when you sang tonight. The power in your voice, it reached out and touched something in me, Marin. Something I didn't know was there until that moment. The pull. The invisible thread I felt connecting us. The second bond. I whisper again, and this time it's not a question. He doesn't answer, but I see the truth in his face. In the way he's looking at me, not with the possessive hunger I've seen in other alphas' eyes when they look at omegas, but with something deeper. Wonder. Fear. Recognition. This can't be happening, I say, panic rising in my chest. This isn't real. Bonds like that don't just appear. You have to choose them. You have to want them. Do you think I wanted this? His voice is rough, almost angry, but I sense the anger isn't directed at me. Do you think I wanted to feel my entire world shift when some servant girl sang a song? I've spent 15 years learning to control every aspect of my life, to be the perfect royal physician, to never let emotion cloud my judgment. And then you opened your mouth and everything I thought I knew about myself became irrelevant. His words should frighten me. They should feel like a threat, like possession, but instead, I hear the same confusion and fear that I feel. He's just as trapped in this as I am. What do we do? I ask quietly. He laughs, a short, sharp sound. I have no idea. The rational part of me says we should go our separate ways. I should help you leave the court, give you enough money to start over somewhere else. We pretend tonight never happened. But I can't. He turns back to face me fully, and in the moonlight his amber eyes seem to glow. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to stay with you, to protect you, too. He stops himself, jaw clenching. It's the bond. It's already forming, already pulling us together, and from what I understand about the old histories, trying to fight it will only make it stronger. Silence stretches between us. I should be terrified. I should be angry. This alpha I don't know is telling me that some mystical force is tying us together, that I have no choice in the matter. But that's not what's happening, is it? Because I feel it too. That pull, that recognition. And it doesn't feel like a violation of my will. It feels like remembering something I'd forgotten. Like coming home to a place I've never been. There's something else, Aldrich says, his voice dropping lower. If the court finds out what you are, what we are, they won't just let you disappear. The council fears anything that threatens their power structure. A song weaver, especially one who's triggered a second bond, represents everything they've tried to erase. They'll kill me. They'll try to control you first, force you to use your gift for their purposes. And when you refuse because you will refuse, I can see that in you then, yes. They'll eliminate the threat. The casual way he says it, the certainty in his voice, sends ice through my veins. And you? What happens to you? I'm the royal physician. I have some protection. But if they discover I'm bonded to a song weaver? He shakes his head. At minimum, I lose my position. At worst, they'll see me as compromised, potentially dangerous. The penalty for an alpha who betrays the court's interests is exile or death. So we're both at risk. Both trapped by something neither of us asked for. I could run, I say, though even as the words leave my mouth, I know it's not really an option, not anymore. Tonight, before anyone figures out what happened, I could disappear. You could try. He moves closer, just a few steps, but I feel the distance closing between us like a physical force. But the bond will follow you. You'll feel it every day, getting stronger, pulling at you. And eventually, you'll come back, or I'll come find you. Neither of us will be able to help it. So what then? We just accept this? Accept that some ancient magic decided we belong together? No. His voice is firm. We decide. Right here. Right now. The bond is real, but it doesn't have to control us. We can acknowledge it exists, and still choose what we do about it. I look up at him, this stranger who somehow doesn't feel like a stranger at all. And what do you choose? He's quiet for a long moment, his amber eyes searching my face. I choose to keep you safe, he says finally. Whether that means helping you run, or helping you hide, or standing between you and the court if they come for you. The bond is pulling at me, yes. But I'd choose to protect you even without it. You're remarkable, Marin. And the world needs remarkable people more than it needs one more obedient cog in the court's machine. Something in my chest loosens, a knot I didn't know I was carrying. Why? The question comes out small, uncertain. Why would you risk everything for someone you just met? Because 15 years ago, my mother risked everything to teach a low-rank alpha boy that there was more to life than his station. Because she showed me that true power comes from what you do with your gifts, not what title the court gives you. And because, he pauses, then continues quietly, because when I look at you, I don't see a servant or an omega or even a song weaver. I see someone who survived 6 years of being invisible and still has the courage to exist. That's worth protecting. Tears prick at my eyes. I blink them back furiously. I haven't cried in front of anyone since my mother died. I'm not about to start now. But I realize that for the first time in 6 years, I don't feel alone. Okay, I hear myself say. Okay, we figure this out together. The words hang in the air between us, a commitment neither of us planned to make. Aldrich's expression shifts relief, determination, and something else I can't quite name. Together, he echoes. Then, more practically. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Lord Blackmere will have people searching for you by now. He'll want answers about what happened tonight. The servant quarters are the first place they'll look. He thinks for a moment. I have rooms in the medical wing. They're private, and I'm one of the few people in the court who doesn't have servants constantly coming in and out. You can stay there tonight, and tomorrow we'll come up with a real plan. The idea of going to his private rooms should worry me. But the bond, I can feel it now, humming quietly in my chest like a second heartbeat tells me I'll be safe with him. And right now, I'm choosing to trust that feeling. All right, I say, but I'm getting my mother's things first. He starts to protest, then seems to think better of it. Then we move fast. Can you walk? I test my ankle gingerly. It's swollen and painful, but if I'm careful, I can manage a slow walk. I can manage. Let me help. He offers his arm, and this time I take it without hesitation. As we leave the shrine and make our way through the dark gardens toward the servant entrance, I realize we've just crossed a threshold. There's no going back to who I was this morning, invisible, compliant, safe in my insignificance. I've been seen. And worse, I've been recognized. My mother's warning echoes in my mind one more time. They would use you or destroy you. Maybe both. But she also said something else, right at the end. Never let them cage your song. For 6 years, I've caged it myself, locked it away in fear. Tonight, I broke it free, and now there's no putting it back. The only way forward is through. And terrifyingly, wonderfully, I won't be going through it alone. That first night, we'd made it to the servant quarters without being spotted. I'd grabbed my mother's small wooden box from my room. It held her few pieces of jewelry, a lock of her hair, and the journal where she'd written down all her recipes for healing tinctures and salves. Everything that mattered fit in a container the size of my 2 hands. We'd slipped back through the servant passages to the medical wing, and I'd spent that first night curled up in Aldrich's armchair, my injured ankle elevated on a cushion, trying to process everything that had happened. The next morning, Lord Blackmere's people had come looking for me. Aldrich dealt with them at his door, his voice cold and authoritative as he informed them that I'd come to him with an injury and he'd sent me to recuperate with a healer friend in the city. They'd accepted it, who would question the royal physician. But I'd seen the suspicion in their eyes. I had maybe a week, at most, before they started asking harder questions. Aldrich's rooms in the medical wing were nothing like I expected. I'd imagined the cold, sterile efficiency of a healer's workspace, all white surfaces, and the smell of antiseptic. Instead, I found myself in a space that felt lived in, comfortable. Books overflowed from shelves onto tables and chairs. Plants crowded the windowsills, filling the air with the scent of earth and green growing things. There was even a battered leather armchair by the fireplace that looked like it's been repaired multiple times but never replaced. I know it's a mess, Aldrich said that first morning, noticing my survey of the room. He was standing by his desk, sorting through a stack of papers. I spend most of my time either working or reading. Organization falls by the wayside. It's nice, I said honestly. It feels human. He glanced up, a small smile crossing his face. As opposed to the rest of the court, everything here is so perfect, so polished. Your rooms feel like someone actually lives in them. Over the next 3 days, my ankle healed quickly under Aldrich's skilled care. We developed a careful dance around each other, close enough to feel the bonds pull, but maintaining enough distance to think clearly. We need to talk about the plan, I said on the 3rd day, breaking the comfortable silence that had developed between us. Aldrich set down his papers and moved to sit in the chair across from mine. I've been making inquiries, he said, quietly. There are still a few people in the court who remember the old ways, who aren't entirely comfortable with how Omegas are treated. I'm reaching out to them, seeing if there's a network that might help you disappear safely. And what did you find? His expression turned grim. Less than I hoped. The court's control is more thorough than I realized. Most people who might have helped are either too afraid or too invested in the current system. So I'm on my own. No. His voice was firm. You're not on your own. I'm coming with you. I stared at him. What? If you leave? I leave. The bond. He stopped. Then started again. It's not just the bond, Marin. You were right when you said we need to choose this. Not just let it happen to us. So I'm choosing. I'm choosing to walk away from the court, from my position, from everything I've built here. Because staying means watching you leave and knowing I did nothing to change a system that would destroy you for existing. The weight of his words settled over me. He was offering to give up everything. For me, because of me. I can't ask you to do that, I whispered. You're not asking, I'm offering. He leaned forward, his amber eyes intense. Marin, I've spent 15 years working within this system, trying to change it from the inside. I've treated Omega servants with dignity, pushed for better working conditions, argued against the council's more draconian policies. And what has it gotten me? Marginal improvements at best. The court doesn't change, it just finds new ways to maintain control. So what, we just run? Abandon everyone else who can't run? No, we regroup. We find others like us, other songweavers, who might still be out there, other alphas who don't buy into the hierarchy. We build something new, something better, but we can't do that from inside the court's walls. I wanted to argue, wanted to find a hole in his logic. But I couldn't. Because he was right. Staying meant slowly being crushed by a system designed to erase people like me. When? I asked quietly. 3 days. There's a supply caravan leaving for the southern provinces. I have contacts who can hide us in one of the wagons. From there, we disappear into the countryside. 3 days. The idea filled me with equal parts, terror and relief. 3 days until I left the only home I'd known. 3 days until I stepped into a completely unknown future. But also, 3 days until I was free. Okay, I said. 3 days. Aldrich's expression softened with relief. We should practice. Practice what? The bond. If we're going to be traveling together, possibly being pursued, we need to understand how it works. Right now, it's just a pull. An awareness of each other. But the old texts suggest it can be more. The first bond pair could sense each other's emotions, even communicate without words when the bond was fully developed. The idea of Aldrich being able to feel my emotions, to know my thoughts, should have terrified me. It should have felt like the ultimate invasion of privacy. But instead, I found myself curious. How do we practice that? Start small. He extended his hand across the space between us, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. May I? I hesitated only a moment before placing my hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused in a way that spoke of work with his hands, not just giving orders. The moment our skin touched, the bond flared to life. It was like a window opening in my chest. Suddenly, I could feel what he was feeling: nervous. Anticipation, deep concern, and underneath it all, a fierce protectiveness that took my breath away. He wanted to keep me safe so badly it was almost painful. Can you feel it? He asked quietly. Yes, I breathed. You're worried. About me. About what we're doing. And you? His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a gesture that felt both intimate and careful. What are you feeling? I closed my eyes, focusing inward. Scared, but also hopeful? Like maybe for the first time in years, there's actually a future worth hoping for. When I opened my eyes, I found him watching me with an expression so tender it made my heart ache. That's good, he said. Hope is good, we'll need it. We sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, the bond humming between us. It was peaceful. Right. And slowly, I started to believe that maybe this wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a gift. Over the next 3 days, we practiced. We learned to sense each other's presence, even when we were in different rooms. I discovered that when I hummed quietly, Aldrich could feel it like a touch against his skin, the vibrations traveling through the bond. He found that he could send me calm when I was anxious, his steady presence grounding me through the connection. We also talked, really talked, in a way I hadn't talked to anyone since my mother died. He told me about growing up as a low-rank alpha, about his mother who healed in the outer rings, and taught him that service to others was more important than status. About watching her die from the same fever that took my mother, because the court's healers wouldn't come to help lesser citizens. I told him about my childhood, about my mother's songs, about the day I realized the court saw me as property rather than a person, about the 6 years of making myself invisible and the piece of my soul that died with each passing day. And slowly, carefully, we became friends. The bond was there, always humming in the background, but we built something else too: trust, understanding, genuine affection for who the other person was, not just what the bond made us feel. On the evening of the second day, I was alone in Aldrich's rooms, while he was handling some last-minute preparations. I found myself standing by the window, looking out over the court's grounds, and I started to hum. Not consciously, just a melody that rose from some deep place inside me. It was a song my mother used to sing, one about freedom and flying and the open sky. As I hummed, I felt the music moving through me differently than it used to. Before, singing was personal, private. Now, with the Songweaver gift awakened, I could feel the music as a tangible force, could sense how it could be shaped and directed. I let the melody grow stronger, and as I did, I felt Aldrich through the bond. He was somewhere in the medical wing, but I could sense him stopping whatever he was doing. His attention suddenly focused completely on me. On the song, through the bond, I sent him a feeling: safety, comfort, hope, and I felt his response, a surge of warmth and affection that flowed back to me like an answer. "I hear you," his thought whispered through the connection. Clear as if he'd spoken aloud. "I know," I thought back, and somehow, impossibly, I knew he heard it. We were learning to use the bond, and it was beautiful. But that night, everything changed. I was jolted awake by a sharp spike of alarm through the bond. Aldrich. Something was wrong. I sat up in the armchair where I'd dozed off, my heart already racing. It was deep night, the fire burned down to coals. I reached out through the bond, searching for him. He was close, just outside his rooms, and he was afraid. The door opened carefully, and Aldrich slipped inside. His face was pale, his expression grim. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of another figure, Atticus, one of the senior court guards, a beta who'd always been less cruel than the others. "We have a problem," Aldrich said quietly, closing the door behind them. Atticus looked at me with something like pity in his eyes. "My lady, I'm sorry, but you need to hear this." The formal address caught me off guard. Servants didn't get called my lady. "What's happened?" I asked, standing despite my still tender ankle. "The council met tonight," Atticus said. "Emergency session. Lord Blackmere convinced them that what happened at the autumn gathering was an act of deliberate sedition. He's claiming you used some kind of forbidden magic to disrupt the court's peace." Cold dread pooled in my stomach. "That's ridiculous. I just sang the song he ordered me to sing." "I know that. Some of us know that." Atticus glanced at Aldrich. "But Blackmere is influential, and he's scared. He saw what your voice did. He knows it's something he can't control, so he's convinced the council you're dangerous." "What's the verdict?" Aldrich's voice was tight, controlled. But I felt his fury through the bond. "Tomorrow morning, they're issuing a warrant for your arrest," Atticus told me. "The charge is practicing forbidden arts. The penalty is..." He trailed off, unable to say it. "Death." I finished for him. "The penalty is death." Atticus nodded miserably. "I'm sorry. I came as soon as I heard. You have maybe 6 hours before the warrant is officially issued and the guards start searching." 6 hours, not 3 days. 6 hours. "We leave tonight," Aldrich said immediately. He was already moving, pulling a pack from his closet, starting to throw supplies into it. "Atticus, can you?" "I've already spoken to Marcus at the south gate. He'll look the other way for 1 hour starting at the change of guard. That gives you until just before dawn." Atticus pulled a small pouch from his belt and pressed it into Aldrich's hand. "Money," Not much, but enough to get you started. And this. He handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it to find a crude map showing route south, with several locations marked with an X. Safe houses, Atticus explained. People who don't love the court's methods. They won't ask questions. Just mention my name. Why are you helping us? I asked. You'll be punished if they find out. His expression hardened. Because I've served the court for 20 years, and I'm tired of watching good people be destroyed for having the audacity to be different. My daughter is an Omega, my lady. She's 7 years old. And every day I look at her and I wonder what kind of world she's going to grow up in. If you and the doctor here can build something better, somewhere else, well, that's worth the risk. Emotion clogged my throat. Thank you, I managed. He bowed his head briefly, then turned to leave. At the door he paused. One more thing. Lord Blackmere has been asking about you, Doctor. Questions about your loyalties, your connections. I think he suspects you're helping her. You need to be very careful. After Atticus left, Aldrich and I moved with swift efficiency. He knew what supplies we needed: traveling clothes, food that wouldn't spoil, medical supplies, money. I contributed what little I had: my mother's box, a few personal items. Within an hour, we were ready. 2 packs, dark traveling cloaks, soft boots suitable for walking. We looked like any other travelers, anonymous, forgettable. Are you sure? I asked him one last time as we prepared to leave. Once we do this, there's no coming back. You'll be a fugitive too. He cupped my face in his hands, his amber eyes fierce. I've never been more sure of anything. We do this together. I nodded, and he leaned down and pressed his forehead to mine. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt more intimate than one. Through the bond, I felt his determination, his protectiveness, and underneath it all, something that felt dangerously like love. But there was no time to examine that feeling. We needed to move. We slipped out of his rooms and into the dark corridors of the medical wing. The court was mostly asleep, but we moved like ghosts anyway, using servant passages and staying in shadows. I knew these routes. 6 years of invisibility had made me an expert. We were halfway to the south gate when we heard voices ahead. Aldrich pulled me into an alcove, pressing us both back against the wall. His arm came around me, sheltering, protective. Through the bond, I felt his intention before he voiced it. Stay quiet, let me handle this. But then I heard the voice that had haunted my nightmares for years. Check every room. She's here somewhere. And when you find her, bring her to me. I want to question her personally before the council gets their hands on her. Lord Blackmere. And he wasn't alone. I could hear at least 3 guards with him, maybe more. They were coming this way. Aldrich's hand tightened on my arm. Through the bond, I felt him calculating our options. We couldn't fight, not against that many guards. We couldn't hide. This alcove was shallow, and they'd spot us if they came close enough. We couldn't run the corridor, only went one direction, and they were between us and the exit. We were trapped. I looked up at Aldrich and saw the same realization in his eyes. Then I saw something else, a terrible resolve. He was going to give himself up, create a distraction so I could run. No, I thought fiercely through the bond. Don't you dare. Marin, it's the only way. No. An idea was forming, desperate and dangerous. Trust me. When I tell you, run for the south gate. Don't stop, don't look back. What are you going to do? Something stupid. Be ready. The voices were getting closer. I could see torchlight flickering on the walls. In seconds, they'd round the corner and see us. I stepped out of the alcove before Aldrich could stop me. Lord Blackmere stopped dead when he saw me, surprise flashing across his cold features. Behind him, 3 guards immediately moved into defensive positions, hands on their weapons. Well, Blackmere said, recovering quickly. The little songbird emerges from hiding. How convenient. You've saved us quite a bit of searching. Let him go, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't look back at Aldrich, still hidden in the alcove. This is between you and me. Him? Blackmere's eyes narrowed, scanning the corridor. Who? Ah, the good doctor. So the rumors are true. You've been harboring a fugitive, Aldrich. That's quite disappointing coming from someone in your position. Aldrich stepped out of the alcove, positioning himself slightly in front of me. She's not a fugitive. She's done nothing wrong. She disrupted the autumn gathering with unauthorized magic. She's a threat to the court's stability. She sang a song at your command. Aldrich shot back. If her voice is a threat, perhaps you should examine why the truth sounds so dangerous. Blackmere's expression hardened. Seize them both. The guards moved forward, and in that moment, I made my choice. I opened my mouth and I sang. Not words, just pure sound, a note that rose from deep in my chest, powered by the songweaver gift that had been awakened. It wasn't the careful, technical performance from the gathering. It was raw power, unleashed. The note hit the guards like a physical force. They stumbled backward, hands flying to their ears. One dropped his torch, another fell to his knees. Through the bond, I felt Aldrich's shock, and then his understanding. Run, I told him through our connection. Now. Not without you, run. I pushed at him through the bond, reinforcing the command with every ounce of will I had. And because the bond worked both ways, because he could feel my absolute determination, he ran. I held the note, pouring everything into it. The sound filled the corridor, resonated off the stone walls. It was too much. Too powerful. I could feel it straining something inside me, like a muscle pushed, being past its limit. But I held it until I heard Aldrich's footsteps fade into the distance, until I was sure he'd gotten away. Then I let the note die. The silence that followed was deafening. I swayed on my feet, exhaustion crashing over me. The guards were recovering, shaking their heads, looking at me with new fear. Blackmere's face was pale but triumphant. Forbidden magic, he said quietly. Witnessed by 4 of us. You've just signed your own death warrant, girl. I met his gaze steadily, even as the guards moved to restrain me. If singing the truth is forbidden, then your whole system is built on lies. His hand cracked across my face, the slap echoing in the corridor. Pain exploded across my cheek, but I didn't cry out. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Take her to the holding cells, he ordered, and find the doctor. He's forfeited his position by aiding a criminal. The council will want to question him as well. As the guards dragged me away, I reached out through the bond one last time. Aldrich. I'm sorry. Run far, run fast. Don't come back for me. I felt his anguish, his fury, his desperate desire to turn around and fight his way back to me. But I pushed against that desire with all my strength. You have to live. You have to build something better. Promise me. A long pause. Then, faint, but clear. I promise. But this isn't over, Marin. I will find a way to save you. I know, I lied gently, because we both knew the truth. There was no saving me. Not from this. I pulled back from the bond, closing my side of the connection down to just a whisper. I didn't want him to feel what came next. He needed to be able to let go, to move on, to survive. The guards threw me into a cell in the court's dungeon. It was small, dark, and cold. They chained my hands and feet, then left without a word. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed in my bones. I sank onto the stone bench that served as a bed, my body shaking with exhaustion and pain. My face throbbed where Blackmere hit me. My throat felt raw from the power I'd channeled through it. But worse than any physical pain was the emptiness where Aldrich's presence used to be. I'd closed the bond down as much as I could, but I could still feel him out there, distant but alive. Getting farther away with each passing moment. It was what I wanted. He was safe. He was free. So why did it feel like I'd ripped out a piece of my own heart? I pulled my knees to my chest, making myself small, and for the first time since my mother's death, I let myself cry. Not because I was afraid of dying, though I was, but because I finally found someone who saw me, really saw me, and I had to let him go. The bond ached, a phantom pain in my chest that no healer could touch. I was alone again, just like I always knew I would be. The hours passed in darkness. I didn't know how long I sat there, but eventually, my tears dried up. The crying gave way to a strange, hollow calm. If I was going to die, I'd die as myself. Not as the invisible servant who spent 6 years hiding, as Marin Ashvale, daughter of a songweaver, voice of truth. They could kill my body, but they couldn't kill what I represented. And somewhere out there, Aldrich carried that knowledge with him. He'd remember. He'd tell others. Maybe that had to be enough. The cell door opened with a screech of metal. I looked up, expecting guards. Instead, I saw a figure in a hooded cloak, moving with surprising stealth. Who? I started, but they held up a hand for silence. The figure approached and pushed back their hood. I blinked in surprise. It was Atticus. "We don't have much time," he whispered urgently. "The doctor made it out. He sent word through our network. There are more of us than you know, my lady. More people who are tired of the court's cruelty." Hope, painful and dangerous, flared in my chest. "You're breaking me out? We're going to try. But you need to understand it won't be clean. People are going to get hurt. Guards, maybe some of ours. Blood will be spilled." His expression was grim. "Are you willing to let others risk their lives for you?" The question hit like a punch. Was I? Could I ask people to die so I could live? But then I thought about Atticus's 7-year-old daughter, about all the Omegas like me who'd been crushed by this system, about the possibility, however, small, that Aldrich and I together could build something better. "Yes," I said quietly. "If they're willing to fight, I'm willing to be worth fighting for." Atticus nodded and produced a key to my chains. "Then let's move. And my lady, when we get out of here, you need to run again. The doctor is waiting at the southern border. Don't stop until you reach him." The chains fell away, and I stood on shaking legs. Whatever came next, at least I wouldn't face it in chains. The escape was chaos. Atticus led me through the dungeon's dark corridors, moving with military precision. We encountered 2 guards, both allies, who nodded and stepped aside, letting us pass. But as we climbed the stairs toward the ground level, we heard shouts. Alarm bells began to ring. "They've discovered you're missing," Atticus said grimly. "Move faster." We burst into a service corridor, and immediately I saw what he meant about people getting hurt. 2 guards lay unconscious on the floor, a third being restrained by a pair of betas I recognized from the servant quarters. They were fighting the court. For me. "Go," one of them shouted. "We'll hold them here." Guilt tore at me, but there was no time. Atticus pulled me forward, and we ran. We made it to the ground floor, to a side entrance that led out to the gardens. Freedom was so close I could taste it, but as we burst through the door into the pre-dawn darkness, we were met by a line of guards. And at their center stood Lord Blackmere, his face twisted with rage. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" he snarled. "I have informants everywhere, including among your pitiful little rebellion, Atticus." My heart sank as I looked at Atticus's stricken face. Someone betrayed them. Someone told Blackmere about the escape attempt. "Run," Atticus told me quietly, his hand going to his sword. "I'll buy you time." "I can't. You have to." He looked at me, and there was no fear in his eyes, just determination. "My daughter needs to grow up in a world where people like you exist, where Omegas have power and voice. You can give her that. So run." Before I could respond, he charged at the line of guards. The others who helped me escape flooded out behind us, and suddenly the garden was a battlefield. I stood frozen for a precious second, torn between helping and honoring Atticus's sacrifice by escaping. Then I felt it a surge through the bond. Aldrich. He was close. Getting closer. "No," I thought desperately. "I told you to run. I told you to leave. And I told you this isn't over." His voice came back, through the bond, fierce and certain. "I'm not leaving you. Not ever." I wanted to be angry at him for coming back, for risking everything. But all I felt was overwhelming relief. I wasn't alone. I ran toward the tree line, toward where I sensed him approaching. Behind me, the sounds of fighting intensified. I heard Atticus shout orders, heard the clash of steel, heard someone cry out in pain. I reached the trees just as Aldrich emerged from the darkness, leading 2 horses. He was dressed for travel, armed with a sword I'd never seen him carry. "I thought I lost you," I gasped. And then I was in his arms, and he was holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Never," he said into my hair. "I'll find you in this life and every one after. The bond doesn't lie, Marin. We're meant to be together." Lord Blackmere, he knew about the escape, someone told him. Aldrich's expression darkened. "Then we need to move now. Can you ride?" I nodded, and he helped me onto one of the horses. As I settled into the saddle, movement caught my eye. A figure running toward us from the court, not in guard uniform but in expensive robes. As they got closer, I recognized her Morwen, one of the court council members. She was elderly, with silver hair and sharp eyes. I'd served her tea dozens of times, and she'd never once acknowledged my existence. "Wait," she called out. "Please, wait." Aldrich moved his horse between us protectively. "We don't have time for this." I know. She reached us, breathing hard. "But you need to know the truth about why Blackmere wants the girl dead so badly." "Because I'm a song weaver," I said. "Because I'm a threat to the court's power structure." "It's more than that." Morwen looked back toward the court, where the sounds of fighting were dying down. 30 years ago, there was another song weaver. Blackmere's mate. The words hung in the air, like a bomb waiting to explode. "What?" I breathed. She was powerful, more powerful than anyone had seen in generations. And Blackmere loved her, truly loved her. But the council, myself included, to my eternal shame, we were afraid of what she could do. We convinced Blackmere that she was dangerous, that she needed to be controlled. Morwen's voice cracked. She wouldn't be controlled. So Blackmere, believing he was protecting the court, believing he was doing the right thing, he killed her, with his own hands, and it destroyed him. Horror washed through me. So when he sees me, he sees her. He sees his greatest sin walking around reminding him of what he lost, what he destroyed. Morwen reached up and grabbed my hand. "He won't stop until you're dead, child. Not because you're a threat to the court, but because you're a threat to his ability to live with himself." "Why are you telling me this?" Aldrich demanded. "Because I've lived with that sin for 30 years, and I won't be party to it happening again." Morwen pressed something into my hand. A small leather journal. This was hers, Blackmere's mate. Her name was Serena, and she wrote down everything she knew about songweavers, about the bond, about the old magic. "Take it, learn from it, and build something better than we did." Before I could respond, she turned and ran back toward the court. I looked down at the journal in my hands, feeling the weight of it. The weight of history, of mistakes, of a woman who died because the people who should have protected her feared her instead. "We need to go," Aldrich said gently. "Right now." He was right. We could examine the journal later. Right now. We needed to survive. We rode hard through the pre-dawn darkness, following the route Atticus marked on his map. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit began: horns, shouting, the thunder of many horses. They were coming after us with everything they had. As the sun rose, we were still riding, still running. The bond between us pulsed with shared determination. We'd escape this. We'd survive. We'd build something new. We had to. Because too many people had sacrificed too much to get us this far. And somewhere in the journal clutched against my chest was the key to understanding what we were, what we could become, if we could just stay alive long enough to read it. We rode for 3 days straight, stopping only when the horses absolutely must rest. We used every trick Aldrich knew riding through streams to hide our scent, doubling back to confuse our trail, avoiding main roads. But the pursuit never faltered. Lord Blackmere had committed significant resources to hunting us down. On the third night, we finally stopped at one of Atticus's safe houses, a small farmstead near the southern border. The family there took us in without question, fed us, tended our exhausted horses. "They came through here yesterday," the farmer told us grimly. "Court guards. 20 of them, maybe more. They're setting up checkpoints on all the southern roads. You won't get through, conventionally." Aldrich studied the map by firelight, his jaw tight with frustration. "There has to be another way. There's the old mining pass through the Blackridge Mountains," the farmer's wife suggested. "But it's dangerous, especially this late in the season. Early snows have already started at higher elevations. We'll take it, I said. Both Aldrich and the farmer looked at me. We don't have a choice. If we try the main roads, we'll be caught. That night, alone in the small room they'd given us, Aldrich and I finally had a chance to examine Serena's journal. The leather was worn, the pages yellowed, but the writing was clear and precise. It was all there. Everything the court tried to erase. The history of the song weavers, the truth about the first bond, detailed accounts of how the gift works and how it can be developed. And in the final pages, a warning. The court fears us because we represent balance. A song, weaver bonded to an alpha, creates a partnership of equals, something the hierarchy cannot tolerate. They will always try to destroy what they cannot control. If you're reading this, you're likely running as I am. Trust the bond. It will guide you to safety if you let it. And remember, your voice is not a weapon unless you choose to make it one. It can also heal, unite, and inspire. Choose wisely. The final entry was dated 2 days before her death. Reading it, knowing what happened to her, made my throat tight with grief for a woman I never met. She was wise, Aldrich said quietly, reading over my shoulder. And she was brave, like you. Brave or foolish. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. He pulled me against him, and I leaned into his warmth. Over these past days, we'd grown closer than I ever imagined possible. The bond had deepened, yes, but so had our genuine affection for each other. I knew his mind, his heart, his fears and hopes, and he knew mine. What do we do? I asked into the darkness. Even if we escape, Blackmere will never stop hunting us. Then we make sure he can't. Aldrich's voice was hard. We find others like us. We build a network, a community. And eventually, we become strong enough that the court has to acknowledge us, has to change. That could take years, decades. Then we have decades. He tilted my chin up, so I was looking at him. I'm not going anywhere, Marin. It's not just the bond anymore. I choose you. Every day, I choose you. The words broke something open in my chest. I choose you too, I whispered. And then he kissed me. It wasn't our first kiss. We'd stolen a few brief moments over the past days, but this one was different. It wasn't desperate or hurried. It was a promise, a commitment. When we finally broke apart, the bond between us was singing, a harmony of two souls perfectly aligned, but our moment of peace was shattered by a sound that made my blood run cold. Horns, coming from the north. The pursuit had found us. We scrambled to the window and saw them in the moonlight, a line of torches, dozens of them, approaching the farmstead. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. The back way. The farmer burst into our room, his face pale. Take the horses and go through the back pasture. We'll try to slow them down. You'll be punished for helping us, Aldrich protested. We knew the risks. Now go. We grabbed our packs and ran for the stables. I could hear shouting now. Hear Lord Blackmere's voice demanding the farmer surrender us. The bond throbbed with Aldrich's fear, not for himself, but for me. We mounted quickly, but as we reached the back pasture, I saw more torches. They'd surrounded the farmstead. We were trapped. The mountains? I said urgently. We go now, tonight, storm or no storm. Aldrich looked at the dark peaks looming to the south, then back at the closing net of guards. It's a death trap in the dark. So is staying here. He met my eyes, and through the bond, we had an entire conversation in seconds. The risks. The odds. The fact that we might not survive the mountain pass, and the absolute certainty that we'd rather die free than live as prisoners. Together? He asked. Always. We wheeled our horses and galloped toward the mountains. Behind us, I heard Blackmere shout orders, hear the thunder of pursuit, but we had a head start, and we knew where we were going. The mining pass was barely visible in the darkness, just a narrow trail winding up into the peaks. Snow already covered the ground here, and the wind was bitter and sharp. Our horses struggled with the footing, but we pushed them onward, higher, higher, into the darkness and the cold and the unknown. Behind us, the pursuit followed, but the trail was too narrow for many horses. They had to string out single file. It slowed them down, gave us precious minutes. We were halfway up the pass when disaster struck. My horse stumbled on ice, its front legs sliding out from under it. I barely had time to kick free of the stirrups before it went down, screaming. I hit the snow hard, the impact driving the air from my lungs. Marin! Aldrich was off his horse in an instant, running to me. I struggled to my feet, my whole body aching. The horse was thrashing, trying to get up, but I could see its leg was broken. Behind us, the torches were getting closer. "Leave it," I gasped. "We'll ride double." But Aldrich was looking past me, his face draining of color. I turned to see what he was seeing. Ahead, the narrow trail was blocked by a massive snowdrift. The recent storms must have deposited it there. There was no way through. No way around. We were trapped between the drift and the pursuing guards. It was over. "No," I said, the word ripping from my chest. "No, we didn't come this far to give up now." But even as I said it, I could hear the guards getting closer, could see Lord Blackmere's distinctive form at the head of the line, his torch illuminating his determined face. Aldrich drew his sword. "Get behind me." "I'm not hiding behind you." "Marin." "No." I stepped forward, planting myself in the center of the narrow trail. "This ends here. One way or another." Blackmere reached us first, his horse carefully picking its way over the icy ground. His guards fanned out as much as the narrow space allowed, cutting off any escape. "It's over," Blackmere said, his voice carrying on the wind. "Surrender now, and I promise you a quick death. Keep fighting, and I'll make it slow." "You killed her," I said, and my voice was steady, clear. "Serena, your mate. The woman you were supposed to protect. You killed her because you were afraid of what she could do." He flinched as if I'd struck him. "You know nothing about that." "I know everything. She wrote it all down. Every truth you tried to bury, every lie you told yourself to justify what you did." I held up the journal. "She loved you, and you murdered her for it." "She was dangerous." The words burst out of him, raw with old pain. "She could have destroyed the court, destroyed everything we'd built." "She could have transformed it," Aldrich said quietly. "She could have made it better, but you were too afraid to let her try." Blackmere's hand went to his sword. "I won't make the same mistake twice. This time, I'll finish what needs to be finished." But before he could draw his weapon, something happened. The snowdrift behind us began to glow. It was soft at first, barely visible, but it grew brighter, and with it came a sound, a humming, like the vibration of struck crystal. The bond in my chest suddenly flared, more powerful than it had ever been. "What's happening?" Aldrich grabbed my arm, steadying me as the power surged through us. I didn't know, but I could feel the Songweaver gift responding to something, resonating with some force I didn't understand. The snowdrift parted, melting away in seconds despite the freezing temperature. And, standing behind where it was, revealed like they'd been waiting there all along, were people, dozens of them. Omegas, mostly, but some betas and even a few alphas. They were dressed in worn traveling clothes, and they were all looking at me with expressions of hope and wonder. At their head was an elderly Omega woman with white hair and eyes that glowed faintly amber in the torchlight. "A song. Weaver," she breathed. "After all these years, a true song, Weaver." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "We are what's left of the old ways," she said. "We've been hidden in these mountains for generations, waiting." Serena was one of us. She tried to change the court from within, tried to make them remember. When they killed her, we knew it was hopeless. So we waited for another. For you. She stepped forward. And now I could see that many of the others had the same faint glow in their eyes. Song weavers, not just me, there were others. "You're not alone, child," the woman said, gently. "You've never been alone." Lord Blackmere's face had gone white. "Impossible. We eliminated all of you. You eliminated those who wouldn't hide," she said, and now her voice carried power, resonated with the same force I felt when I sang. "But some of us learned. We went underground, we hid our gifts, we survived. And we've been building something new, something better, waiting for the right moment to emerge." She turned her glowing gaze on Black Mirror. That moment is now. The second bond has awakened. Songweaver and Alpha, bonded by choice and power. The prophecy is fulfilled. More figures emerged from the darkness of the mountains. Not just songweavers, but fighters. People with weapons, with determination in their eyes. The guards around Black Mirror suddenly looked a lot less confident. They were outnumbered 3-1. Stand down. Corvith, the elder said, using Black Mirror's first name. This is done. You can't win this fight. I won't let you destroy everything. We've built, he growled, but I heard the desperation in his voice. We're not here to destroy, Aldrich said, stepping forward to stand beside me. We're here to offer a choice. The court can continue as it is, built on fear and oppression. Or it can change, can embrace what songweavers represent: balance, partnership, true bonds instead of hierarchical control. The council will never accept it. Then the council will find itself without subjects, the elder said calmly. Do you think you're the only ones who are tired, Corvith? The system is breaking. It's been breaking for years. We're just offering a different way forward. And if we refuse, then we build our community here, in the mountains, and anyone who wants true freedom knows where to find us. She spread her hands. We're not your enemies. We're just people trying to live according to our nature instead of your rules. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Black Mirror looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. The rage was still there, but underneath it, finally, I saw grief. The raw, unhealed grief of a man who destroyed the thing he loved most. She would have hated what I became, he said quietly, and I knew he was talking about Serena. Yes, I said, not unkindly. She would have. But it's not too late to choose differently. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, slowly, he sheathed his sword. Fall back, he ordered his guards. We returned to the court. My lord, one of the guards questioned, confused. That's an order. His voice was tired, so tired. He looked at me one last time. I can't promise the council will listen. I can't promise anything will change. But I won't be the one to kill another songweaver. I've seen where that path leads. He turned his horse and began the careful descent back down the mountain. His guards followed, casting uncertain glances back at us. As they disappeared into the darkness, I felt my legs give out. Aldrich caught me before I fell, holding me tight. Is it over? I whispered. Is it really over? The running is over, the elder said, approaching us with a warm smile. But the real work? That's just beginning. She held out her hand. My name is Kestra. Welcome home, little songweaver. Welcome home. I took her hand, and I felt the connection, not just to her, but to all the others standing in the snow. A web of songweavers, old and young, strong and still learning. A community, a family. For the first time since my mother died, I wasn't alone, and neither was Aldrich. The alphas who had bonded with songweavers generations ago stepped forward and welcomed him as one of their own. He wasn't an aberration or a traitor to his kind. He was part of an ancient tradition of alphas who chose partnership over domination. Come, Kestra said. We have a settlement just over the ridge. It's not much, but it's warm and safe. And there's so much to teach you. So much to learn. As we followed her into the mountains, Aldrich's hand firm in mine, the bond singing between us, I thought about my mother. About how she told me my voice was power, that I should choose carefully who I sang for. I was choosing now. I was choosing to sing for these people, for this community. I was choosing to use my gift not as a weapon, but as a bridge. And I was choosing Aldrich every day for the rest of my life. Not because a bond forced me to, but because he'd proven himself worthy of that choice. Are you all right? He asked softly as we walked. I looked up at him, at his concerned amber eyes, and I smiled. A real smile, full of hope. I'm perfect, I said. For the first time in 6 years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I was. 1 year later, the air in the mountain settlement's gathering hall was thick with the scent of pine, wood smoke, and warm collective anticipation. It clung to my skin like a blessing. I stood not in shadows this time, but in the center of the hall, surrounded by faces that smiled at me with genuine affection. This was not a ceremony of claiming or choosing. This was a celebration, a recognition. Today, I was becoming a full song weaver of the mountain community. Today, I was taking my place not as a servant or a fugitive, but as a teacher, a healer, a voice for those who needed one. The hall was simpler than the Grand Celestium, built from timber and stone with our own hands, but it was warmer, more alive. Children chased each other between the benches. Elderly Omegas shared stories with young Alphas. There was laughter here, real laughter. Not the practiced social performance of the court. Aldrich stood beside me, his hand warm in mine. Over the past year, our bond had grown deeper, richer. We could communicate almost entirely through thought now when we chose to. But we still talked aloud, still valued the mundane intimacy of conversation. The bond enhanced our connection. It didn't replace our humanity. He'd changed in the past year. The rigid control he learned at the court had softened. He smiled more easily now. And he'd found purpose here, teaching younger Alphas a different way of being powerful, through partnership, through service, through choosing strength over dominance. Kestra approached, carrying a silver circlet, the traditional marker of a fully trained song weaver. It was simple, unadorned, but it represented a year of learning and growth. Marin Ashvale, she said, her voice carrying through the hall. You came to us broken and afraid, running from those who would have destroyed you. You had been taught that your voice was a flaw, that your gift was a curse. But you have learned what your mother knew, that a song weaver's power lies not in force, but in truth. Not in domination, but in harmony. She placed the circlet on my head. It was light, barely more than the weight of a thought, but I felt the significance of it settle into my bones. You are no longer a servant. You are no longer a fugitive. You are a song weaver, a guardian of the old ways, and a builder of new ones. You are, and always have been, enough. The hall erupted in celebration. Not polite applause, but genuine joy, whoops and cheers, and the howling of shifted wolves. Aldrich pulled me into his arms, spinning me around while I laughed. I'm so proud of you, he murmured against my hair. We did this together, I reminded him. No. He pulled back to look at me, his amber eyes intense. You did this. I just had the privilege of being there to watch. The celebration continued around us, but Kestra raised a hand for attention. Our song weaver wishes to perform, she announced. If you would honor us? I stepped forward to the center of the hall, and the room fell into an expectant silence. A year ago, standing before a crowd would have terrified me. Now, I felt only peace. I opened my mouth, and I sang. It was the ballad of the first moon, the same song I performed at the autumn gathering. But this time, I sang it with my whole heart. This time, I wasn't performing for masters who saw me as property. I was singing for people who saw me as family. And this time, I sang the verses they cut from the court's version, the ones about song weavers, about Omegas with power, about the true partnership that the first bond represented. My voice filled the hall, and I felt the power of the gift flowing through me. Not to control or coerce, but to connect. I could feel each person in the room, could sense their emotions through the web of sound. Joy, pride, hope, love. So much love. Through the bond, I felt Aldrich's presence like a second heartbeat. And I felt something else too, the beginning of a new life, small and fragile, growing inside me. A child, our child. The next generation of those who choose partnership over hierarchy. I hadn't told Aldrich yet. I wanted to, but I also wanted to hold this secret just a little longer, to savor the wonder of it, privately before it became real. As the final note faded, as the hall erupted into celebration again, I closed my eyes and sent a thought to my mother. Wherever she was, I made it. Mama, I found my song, I found my people, and I'm using the gift just like you taught me to heal, to connect, to make things better. I felt, rather than heard, her answer, a warmth in my chest, a sense of approval and love that transcended death itself. When I opened my eyes, Aldrich was watching me with a knowing smile. You felt it, I said, not really a question. The bond hid nothing. I felt it, he confirmed, and his hand came to rest gently on my stomach. We're going to be parents. Are you ready for that? With you, I'm ready for anything. Later, after the celebration had wound down, after we'd returned to our small cabin on the settlement's edge, we sat by the fire and I pulled out Serena's journal. I'd read it cover to cover a dozen times now, but there was always something new to discover. Listen to this, I said to Aldrich, finding a passage near the end. She wrote, "If you're reading this, you survived. You found others. You built something new. Now comes the hard part, maintaining it. Not just the community, but the hope. Because the world will push back. The old powers will resist. And you'll be tempted to give up, to hide forever in safety. Don't. Your voice, your bond, your very existence is an act of revolution. Living freely, loving openly, building fairly. These are not just personal choices. They're political statements. They're proof that a different way is possible. So sing loud. Love fiercely. Build boldly. And never, ever let them convince you that you should be smaller than you are." I closed the journal, my throat tight with emotion. She knew. She knew we'd make it here. She had hope, Aldrich said. Just like you have hope. Just like our child will have hope. Do you think we'll ever go back? To the court, I mean. To try to change. Tit? He was quiet for a moment, staring into the flames. I don't know, maybe, when we're strong enough, when we have enough people with us, or maybe they'll come to us, one by one, the ones who are tired of the old ways. Either way, change is coming. It's already started. And he was right. Over the past year, more refugees had found their way to the mountain settlement, Omegas fleeing servitude, Alphas questioning the hierarchy, Betas tired of being caught between the extremes. Even a few members of the court's lower councils had quietly defected, bringing with them resources and information. The network was growing. Slowly, carefully, but growing. Word had spread about the Songweaver in the mountains. About the Alpha who chose partnership over power. About a place where the old hierarchies didn't matter. Where you were valued for who you were, not what rank you were born into. It wasn't perfect. We still struggled, still argued, still made mistakes. But we were building something real. Something sustainable. Something that acknowledged both the bond's power and the importance of individual choice. I have something for you, Aldrich said suddenly. He retrieved a small wrapped package from the mantel. I was going to wait, but now seems right. I unwrapped it carefully to find a bracelet leather, worn and soft, with a small charm attached. My breath caught. It's your mother's, he said quietly. I sent word to someone I trust in the city. They retrieved your things from the servant quarters before they were discarded. There wasn't much, but this was there. It was my mother's bracelet, the one my grandfather gave her. The one she wore every day until the fever took her. I'd thought it was lost forever when I fled the court. I slipped it onto my wrist with shaking hands. It smelled faintly of her, of the herbs she used, of home. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you. He pulled me close, and we sat together by the fire, his arms around me, our child growing between us, my mother's bracelet warm on my wrist. Outside, I could hear the settlement settling down for the night. Someone was singing, not me, but another song weaver, practicing. The sound was sweet and clear, a promise of tomorrow. I thought about the girl I was a year ago, standing on that dais in the Grand Celestium, terrified and alone, singing for masters who saw her as nothing. That girl believed she was broken. She believed her invisibility was all she could offer the world. But she was wrong. Her invisibility wasn't weakness, it was survival. And when the moment came, when it mattered most, she found her voice. She sang truth. She awakened something ancient and powerful. She chose to exist loudly, freely, fully. That girl became this woman. Song weaver. Partner. Teacher. Future mother. Revolutionary. Not through violence, but through the simple act of refusing to be erased. I was told I was not enough. That my voice was a flaw. That I should be grateful for whatever scraps the powerful chose to give me. But I was always enough. My voice was always power. And the only permission I needed to exist fully was my own. The court tried to cage my song. They failed. And now, surrounded by people who choose freedom over control, bonded to a man who chose partnership over dominance, carrying a child who would grow up knowing they have choices, I sang whenever I wanted. Loud, clear, true. And the mountains sang back,